Hey everybody, and welcome to another edition of Board Games Hitting My Table. This is where I talk about all of the games that I have been playing over the last couple of weeks, and this episode will cover the first half of October 2024. And stay tuned because this is a really strong episode with some classic Euro games. But before I get started on the games, I want to give a shout out to the show's sponsor, KIENDA.co.uk, who are my go-to online retailer. And if you use the link in the show notes or the QR code, then you can get 5% off your first order. Additionally, there is another KIENDA link in the bio where you can get some amazing deals on some recommended titles from myself. And again, I'll leave that in the comment below, but that will not start until a couple of days' time. So I'll leave the date when that starts as a little note below this video. So keep an eye out for that one and get yourself some good deals. But let's start with the games then. Let's start with one of my favourite games of all time. I finally got Trajan back to the table. A three-player game of this Steffenfeld Mancala classic. I've always rated this at my second favourite game of all time. I think it's held that position for probably 5 years or so now. I think it's that good of a title. And playing it again, it still remains one of my only two games I've ever rated a 10 out of 10. Now, this is a game that that's very brain burnery, you know, as you're moving these little discs or little tokens around your Mancala bowls. Wherever you land will be the action that you take. So it's lots of mini games that synergize with each other through this Trajan system, where if you get certain colors in bowls when you activate that action, then you get a little bonus action that can give you bonus points or give you a little leg up in the different mini games. And that's normally where I fall short in this game, by leaving certain games or different areas of the board without the meeples in them that I need to use those games. And if you know this game, you'd understand what I mean by that. And this game I actually managed to do well in that aspect. It was a very close game. Unfortunately, my brother is extremely good at this game, and I think he won again. He's got a very good record at this one, but definitely held my own, as did the third opponent. And it was a very good game, and I enjoyed every single second of it. And this one, if you love Steffenfeld games, this is the best of the best, and one of the best games of all time. So yeah, what else can I say about that one? Moving on then, we played a three-player game of Haval Land. Very simple but overlooked Knizia route building style game, as you are placing these hot air balloons on this map, trying to create routes from the main pathway and venturing into these different terrains, launching those fleets of balloons to get a ton of victory points. But there are also other ways and different ways you're pulled in different directions by building next to these pagodas, achieving public goals, as well as trying to populate particular regions to get kind of amplifying points. Very simple stuff. I don't think it's up there with the best of his route building style games, but it's still rock solid, and it feels different enough that it's held its place in my collection. And yeah, I definitely sing the praises of Haval Land. Let's get a couple of smaller ones out the way. So I played, obviously, a two-player game of Air, Land and Sea with the original setup, actually. So the Air, Land and Sea combination, because I do have the expansion to this one where you can chop and change all the different locations, which means you're playing with different decks. I did a random shuffle and it ended up coming up with Air, Land and Sea, which is still one of the best combinations. Just a brilliant, very cerebral two-player game that I love. Also played a four-player game of Mind Up. Definitely a hidden gem of this last year. A twist on the 6 Nimmt mechanism, where you are playing cards blindly. The higher number will collect the higher card, and so on. But the difference about this game is that you are placing these score cards in a random order, meaning that the first set you collect might be worth more or less points than the other one. So kind of you want to venture into where the high point regions are and keep on spamming those cards. It's very clever, very fast, and kind of an evergreen card game, and that's not going to go anywhere in my collection. A couple more smaller ones before I get back to the Euros. I played quite a bit more House of Cats. So relatively new game into my collection. It recently featured in my my ranking videos, and it did well. But when I did that video, I'd only played a couple of the maps, which were the simpler ones. I've now played all of the maps several times, and yeah, I love the variety in those maps and how different the complexity is. The first game is a very simple roll and write game, just trying to create groups together and put mice in these different rows and columns to tick this cheese off. But in the fourth map, which is the most complex one, you actually are increasing or expanding the map as you go in order to move into those places in the first place. So it definitely has layers of gameplay here. Very brain burnery, that fourth game, and yeah, quite not uncomfortable, but almost punishing and restrictive, which I like how you can choose how to approach House of Cats. And the final two-player game, we played a two-player game of Caper Europe. Introduced this one to a friend of mine. We played the first initial France map, and it was an interesting game actually because I think I did quite well on the tug-of-war aspect. I at least won 2 out of the 3 locations, and my opponent did really well based on how he played the cards themselves, because I was controlling the regions and I got a ton of the the valuables, the treasure little tokens that give you a lot of points. But again, he played those cards a lot better than I did, and he actually squeezed the win without actually controlling the majority of the regions, which I thought was quite an interesting kind of balancing take on the game, because you can definitely approach this game in different ways, and it's so well balanced. And I love the card drafting, I love the art, I love the production, and I love the gameplay. So Caper Europe, a game that I was unsure of for a long time, but now it's in my collection. I'm so glad I've got it, and I kind of feel silly not for giving this one a try earlier. Let's get back to the Euros then, and we played a 4-player game of Carson City. So I've not had a ton of chances to get Carson City to the table, but I really had the itch to play it. A great hybrid between kind of Euro mechanisms with some Ameritrashy mechanisms through dice rolling, as you are building up this western city and trying to get as much money as you can, convert money into victory points basically. There's so many different layers to this game that I appreciate. I love the role selection, where each round you take a different character that will give you different powers. So for example, some might let you buy land at a discount, or even give you random parcels of land, which we had in this game. Some of them will give you more firepower, more money, and so on. I didn't actually contribute too much to the infrastructure of Carson City in this particular game, as much as my opponents did anyway. But I think I managed to squeeze the win by going full-on dice rolling mode, by taking these firepower cards where if I won a duel, I'd get some victory points that way. So I was just trying to hijack other people's turns and take their spots from them and get points that way. I think it just worked out in the end, which is good. But so I love the different approaches of this one as well. I love some of the small, very clever catch-up mechanisms, because if you actually lose a duel in this game, you get that meeple back, so you've got an extra worker for the next turn, and that'll also mean you get more firepower, because your firepower isn't only based on dice rolls, it's also these gun tokens you've collected, as well as any meeple you have left in your supply. So sometimes passing earlier is quite useful, because you get a better chance of winning those roll-offs. But still, love this one. It is so good, and yeah, almost like a classic Euro, and it really does fit that bill of, if you like Euro games and worker placement games, you'll like it. If you like city building games, you'll like it. And if you like pure dice rolling insanity, then you'll also like it. So definitely ticks a lot of boxes, and it's growing stronger and stronger in my own rankings. Let's go to a game I've not played in many, many years. This is Deus. So more observant viewers of the channel might be aware that I did actually sell Deus quite a long time ago. I kind of feel silly for doing that, because this game is amazing. And it was so good to get it back into the collection and to get it played. And the reason I bought it back was because I often try to craft new lists and stuff for the channel so I can release new content. And I kept finding that Deus kept on popping up more and more on those lists, and I was thinking, God, why did I get rid of this game? And getting it back to the table now, it was just a stark reminder as to how silly I was, because this game is so good. The card play is fantastic. As you are playing these cards by spending other cards and then triggering the existing cards from the oldest player's one to the newest player's one. They all combo together. You can score points in different ways. You can control the board. You can try and just control certain regions. It's just absolutely brilliant and a very clean Euro game with good hand management. Those multi-use cards are great. A good sense of urgency as the game does tick along really quickly. And yeah, I love it. And I'm trying to think how this game played out. I think I did quite well militarily compared to my opponent. But my opponent actually managed to squeeze the win based on controlling particular regions and then keep on spamming that particular block of cards to keep on getting more and more points and harvesting points from those particular locations. But still, what a wonderfully balanced game and what a wonderful experience. So that is Deus. So back to two more, I think they're top 10 games to me at the moment. The first of which being Grand Austria Hotel. Raved about this one on the channel for a long time, but I don't play this one too often because I obviously played it lots in the past and I'm always playing new games. But I wanted to get some of these old games played before all the kind of new Essen releases, the new 2024 releases come out and are available here in the UK. But Grand Austria Hotel, one of my favourite dice drafting games, probably one of the best resource management games out there, as you are collecting resources and then feeding your guests, sending them off to their rooms happy, getting combos as guests give you different rewards which can help you feed other guests, and so on. Tons of ways to score points here by completing blocks of rooms, again feeding your guests, climbing tracks, all the Euro goodness hallmarks that you'd come to expect from a designer of Luciani and Gili's pedigree. The dice drafting system is fantastic as you are rolling all the dice. Each pip associates to a different action, but the more dice associated to an action means the stronger that action is. So, if you had 4 on this track action, then you'd get a strength 4 action, but it makes it weaker for the next person because you've removed a dice from that spot. But it also means that you might want to act quicker and taking the locations with fewer resources because there's only one opportunity to do that. This game was really tight and it was a real back and forth. I started off slowly, but it managed to catch up based on some really interesting staff cards that I had. So I had a staff card that allowed me to build and just instantly close 2 rooms on any floor that I liked. So that was like instant points based on completing rooms on the top row. And I also had this wonderful power where I could take the 6 dice, which are wilds essentially, but you normally have to pay to use them. I managed to get them for free, but also 1 strength stronger, so I had lots of flexibility. But unfortunately, my opponent just squeezed a public objective where nobody else did, and that just got them just enough points to get the win, despite suffering some negative points at the end by having too many guests remaining. So yeah, really cool how the different routes we went here, but still one of the absolute best Euro games of all time, and I love it still. So that is Grand Austria Hotel. And the final physical game I have here is Glen Mo 2 Chronicles. So a bit like Trajan and Grand Austria Hotel, been one of my favourites for many, many years now, just hallmarks of my collection. This one, I just had the itch to get it back to the table. This wonderful tile placement game as you're building up this little kind of Glen Mo and trying to trigger buildings, collect resources, convert those resources. And quite interestingly, I took a strange approach by keeping my grid as small as possible, which does actually reward you at the end of the game. And I got a lot of these people tokens, or these tiles, that let me get lots of technology upgrades, that kind of stuff. And I was pulling ahead that way by quite a lot. Now, one of my opponents did really well in building up their infrastructure of their board, getting lots of conversions, that kind of thing. But they got so many different tiles that their map was so big that they lost a lot of points at the end of the game, and I just got the win there. But it was nice to play this one at 4 players. I introduced this one to my girlfriend for the first time. She did quite well. And it was just a lovely game. And just, again, I love playing these games that I've not played in many years that I've just completely dug their claws into my top 10, top 20 games of all time, and it's going to be very difficult to shake them from those spots because they are the best of the best. So that is Glen Mo 2 Chronicles, and that's it. That's all of the games I have here. I did play a couple more. I can't remember all of them, but I do remember that I played a 2-player game of Tikal. So my friends got the classic game of Tikal by Kramer. Really nice game. I think it actually works really well at 2 players. This was the first time I played at 2 players. We had a very even game, only a few points in it. I think the only thing that rubs me the wrong way is that the luck of the tile draw can be so strong, and you can build these kind of rabbit warrens, or these holes that it's not worth you investing in if your opponent has got complete, a monopoly over that location. But still, the gameplay is good. I actually do like the action points allowance system, and it's a real solid game and a lot of people's favourite. I know that. But that concludes the video, really. Hopefully you have enjoyed it as much as I've enjoyed playing these wonderful games. If you have, please be sure to hit like and subscribe to the channel, and check out my other content too. But for everybody else, I'll see you next time on Chairman of the Board. Bye bye.